Okay, this is
We're back.
live video part 2 because we got to sit in on that lovely historic tour that was just happening where
They stopped right here where we're sitting.
we also made an observation that this courtyard is where they would have pulled the horses and buggies in to stable them for the evening.
Yeah, Sandy had mentioned that we'd seen this open gate, so we walked through, and to us it was just an opening to a courtyard. Well, it's a long tunnel, and the woman not giving the tour had said, well, our next stop will be in the carriageway, and she basically helped me understand what this was. Is that would have been, they would have brought the carriages through here, and this is where they would have kept the horses and the buggies while either visiting here, or I would imagine this is a business district at the time, although there was probably upstairs was probably living quarters and things, so that might have been either for business or it could have been for personal. So it's really kind of interesting. But when I was talking a minute ago before the interruption, I was talking about how this area, the look, the reclaimed brick, it has this feel. This is what I would build for me if I were to build a backyard environment. This would be a backyard environment for me. The reclaimed brick, the plastered walls, just that overall feel that has a really good old world history, 200 years of energy and experience. And if these walls could talk, what would they say? It would be pretty amazing just to hear the stories that would have been involved just in this little part of this little neck of this bigger, the French Quarters is one of the most distinct, I was reading a placard on the way in here, one of the most distinct architectural places in the world because of how it was built and what it is. And so this is just one little microcosm, one little spot within that is really freaking cool. It's really kind of a neat little find, I guess you'd call it.
It is. When traveling, if you follow any of my photos, there are a lot of architecture and different vignettes that I tend to post. I also have some more home and lifestyle decor images coming out. And one of the things that dawned on me this morning is I've been traveling all around the world, which is amazing, and I take pictures everywhere I go, and nothing may happen for a while, but then one day I may look up at a ceiling and say that ceiling needs artwork. Or when we are doing our pool projects, what should water come out of? Well, of course, water should come out of some musical instruments. So apparently I take inspiration from my travels around the world, and I kind of bookmark it as a cool idea that I've seen somewhere, and then eventually it will come back out. Last night we wandered into a shop, and the ceiling was covered in artwork and paintings, and they mounted a clarinet on the ceiling, which I had just been wondering where I was going to put that clarinet in the office that's hanging out on a shelf. So when you come in next time, it will probably be on a ceiling. A side tangent as well, if you've ever heard me talk about New Orleans, you've heard me talk about Yo Mama's Kitchen, which has the best bacon peanut butter burgers on the planet. And we were trying to find it with our whole group last night so that we could have dinner, and we Googled it. Of course, it said. However, here's the story. The previous owner of Yo Mama's Kitchen did not renew the lease, so it does still exist on St. Peter's Street. So it is Port St. Peter's. Same menu, because it is just one of the favorite things. And I overheard a table that came in after we did, and they were very excited, and everybody was talking about the peanut butter burgers. So it's not just me, it's a thing.
And that's, I guess that's a synchronicity moment. We were remembering based on where we remember seeing it, and finally frustrated that we didn't know it wasn't around. We just thought maybe we couldn't find it. After we quit searching, we found online that it had been permanently closed. So we found a restaurant to eat in, went upstairs, wanted to sit overlooking Bourbon Street, and none of us wanted anything on the menu. So we gave them back our menus, went downstairs, walked out the side door of the restaurant, and turned to our left and said, well, let's go there. This St. Peter's something, it said cocktails and kitchen. and we walked toward it, and there was a gentleman in the front, and he goes, "Hey, we have great burgers here." And the minute we turned in there, Sandy and I both realized where we were, and it in fact was Yo Mama's Kitchen of the past. Now, it's been a few years since we've been there, because, well, since we've been here, but it was really cool. I mean, that's just gives you that sense of just follow it and believe it, and you never know what you're going to find, what you're going to see. And this was a case where we found exactly what we were looking for, and it was exactly where we could mentally picture where it was, but without a sign and without knowing it was there. It was just under another name, and food was equally as good as it always has been.
Definitely was. So our next stop today will be heading to the International Pool Show, where we always go looking for inspiration, ideas, and maybe just that one thing that can impact us in our business moving forward. Of course, the pool guy is giving a talk on the show floor. That will be tomorrow afternoon at about 2:30. So we are looking forward to meeting up with some of our people in the industry, including the Pool Industry Mastermind, which amazingly enough came about as the result of a podcast. So if you remember when we were building the SpongeBob Wilderness Pool, Al and I had done down by the little pond area on the property a podcast where we talked about, wouldn't it be great to get people together in the industry to mastermind and have ideas and share thoughts and all that kind of good stuff. And we talked about doing it. Then we did. We launched it, and it is growing every day. And new people coming into the group, it is not like a salesy kind of place. It's a, like, here we are, we all care about knowledge and helping each other. And new people coming in, their first comment is, thanks so much for the ad. I love the content that I'm seeing here. And maybe here's my question, or just a little bit about what they do. So we have all met virtually. A few of us have met in person. And tomorrow on the show floor, I am hoping that we can do some interviews with some of our fellow pool industry masterminders who will hopefully come and see us at the Splash Talk.
For me, the pool show over the years, when I think about my early years doing this and, working for the previous owner, and his philosophy and his way would never have been to come and spend money to travel a distance like this to come to a show. Well, the minute I took the business over, I knew that I needed more. Maybe he just had his rich experience of spending all his time over the years doing pools, and he was okay with that. And to him, the business was a commodity product. It was just how much he could sell, how quickly he could sell it, and once he was out of it, he was done. He didn't want to know anything about it. But for me, I wanted to know more, and I wanted to figure out how could I be better at this. I didn't have the experience, so I didn't have the how-to skill set. I didn't know all the suppliers as well personally. I had met most of the people, but I didn't have those long-term relationships where I could learn new product, new whatever. So very early on, I decided to come to a couple shows. And the first show, I think the first year in business, that fall, and it was a tough year, just trying to throwing mud against the wall as fast as we could to try to make anything stick. Didn't know what we were doing, but we were trying everything possible. That first year, we decided we were going to go to Phoenix, Arizona to the pool show. And it was a stretch. It was one of those tough things, a tough decision, business decision, but you got to do it. This was going into the fall and into the winter then, which we had no idea what that was going to look like. Again, seasonal business, work stops, money stops, but the bills don't stop. The property, the insurance, we had all of that. We had truck payments. We didn't start with zero. We started with a lot because we bought an existing business, buying it on the previous owner's money, basically, his faith in us that we could make this happen. And I remember going to Phoenix and walking that show and looking at everything that was possible and trying to figure out what could I do, how could I do it, what things attracted me, how could I be better. And I just started learning about the industry and learning about the things that I'd never seen in Michigan because they didn't show up. And a supplier didn't tell us, and the supplier rep didn't tell us about them. And to me, I learned that valuable lesson early, that I invested when there was no physical, monetary way that I should have been able to be there, but I was. And the net result was it helped me figure it out, so that 20 some years later, we're still going, we're still doing, and we're changing and growing more now than we ever did then because we understand the value. But a lot of that comes from investing in coming to these things. And as much as it's about getting away from town, from home, and thinking it's having a party and a good time, this is about learning. This is about growing. This is about changing. And kind of an interesting story, and I'll pass it back to Sandy, was last night Katie and I were walking down the street. We just turned off of Bourbon Street onto Canal Street, and there was a young guy begging on the side at the, sitting there and begging, I guess. I mean, he had a sign there. He was sitting there in the almost dark reading a book. But I stopped and read his sign, and his sign said, "Everyone needs a hand up sometimes," something like that. And I walked past him, and I turned around, and I said, you know what? I agree with that, but more importantly, he was busy reading a book. He was educating himself. He was doing something, and who knows why, what, where, it doesn't matter. So I made sure I went back and gave him some money, because it was a really valuable lesson in that no matter where you're at life, you can always learn, you can always grow. And that maybe share what Craig Hughes from Phoenix that we do when we just saw him. Here's a guy who has an amazing business, and what did he tell us when we first saw him? Go ahead.
Al tells the story better.
Nah.
He does, definitely. So Craig Hughes, a friend of ours from Phoenix, owns a very large company there. And the very first thing as we met up with him at the last summit that we attended was, "So Craig, what's new with you?" And his first thought was, "Oh, I'm taking this class." And he went on to tell us about the class and everything he's learning. So there is no point where you get somewhere and you know everything. And I think the people, like Al said, that become successful are continually seeking and learning, and that's one of the things that we keep trying to do. So,
and that's that point, going from this is two extremes. This is a guy literally begging for anything he can get on the street, but educating himself, to a guy who's fabulously successful, has a great business, is just a great human being, an amazing guy, also still educating himself. There's not a point where you go, well, I've learned enough because I have enough money, enough success, enough whatever. Instead it was, how can I be a better person? And he was about as far of extremes that I could have seen, at least in a 2-week period of time, or week, however long it's been, that here we go from someone and too far extreme social status, social whatever, and they were both educating themselves, and I thought that was really cool.
well, we are going to journey on and continue educating ourselves today about the history and culture of New Orleans, and then a little bit more about the pool industry. So hopefully, if we have a chance, we'll be back with you very soon with more live commentary.
See you later, guys.
We'll see you then.